Hi everyone, I'm Tim Derling. Welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. Thank you for watching. On this episode, I'm going to go through my Toto CD collection, which is complete as far as all the studio albums go. I've got a lot of their live albums, not all of them, and same thing for compilations. Any band that's been around as long as they have this, live albums and compilations usually outweigh the actual studio albums. But so there's a lot here to talk about. Some of these CDs are kind of rare these days. Definitely not one of the rare ones is their debut from '78, very successful album. This is just a typical US CBS CD. Now, one thing that's different about this is that on the side, as opposed to usually you have it white on the side with the, the famous impact font here can be seen. This one's black for some reason. It looks kind of cool. And CD itself, pretty typical looking. That's probably when they, yeah, actually this is credited 1978, 1986. 1986 is the year a lot of CDs got reissued initially. And it's just got the lyrics and credits that the original record had. Next album, 1979, Hydra. This is actually a UK version. You can kind of tell it doesn't have the compact disc logo down here at the bottom that a lot of these early CDs did. So it looks quite different on the side. There's the back of it, still on Columbia. And the CD looks quite a bit different. Now what's interesting about this is that the credits and all of the lyrics inside the Hydra album were written out. Not the easiest thing to read, but the first song, which is the title song, Hydra, there was no lyrics for it. There were just a couple of lines, but they took it upon themselves when they put the CD out to type out all the lyrics to the song, which is kind of cool. And it's got the same pictures that appeared in the record, although I think on the record they were in color. The next Toto album, third album, came out in 1981. It remains a very underrated, overlooked album. Turn Back, and this is the US because of that logo there, but I've always liked the simplicity of this artwork. Nothing written on it. There's nothing written on the record either. That's a fairly typical looking US CBS CD. And this is an earlier pressing where it was made in Japan for sale in the US, and you may see some of them where there's a sticker over, down this way or something that says now made in the USA. This one was made in Japan for US sales. Another way you can tell it's a little bit older, that instead of saying Columbia, it actually just says CBS with the Columbia I logo. And it was pretty minimal packaging inside the original vinyl, and they kind of recreated all here. Folds out like this. So it's got all the lyrics and the credits. There wasn't much else. Great album. No radio staples came off this, no hit singles. And it didn't certify gold, which is kind of weird because it's in between these, more successful ones. Of course, the big one, 1982, and this is a CD I talked about when Mike Ladano and I talked about rare CDs. Toto 4. There's nothing rare about this album. It's their most popular, but this is an old Canadian CBS CD with the, what I like to call the box format. It looks like this. And again, we see it just says CBS, not Columbia. I actually have a few of these for Toto, it just so happens. There wasn't much inside the record anyway, it's just these credits. It's missing the picture of the band that was inside, but I've said this before, I never used to like these ones, now I kind of look for them. In my opinion, another overlooked Toto album, even though it went gold, but it kind of went gold on the strength of Toto 4. And I actually argued for this on The Contrarians as my favorite Toto album, and I kind of still stand by that. It's pretty good. Isolation, 1984. US Columbia CD. Pretty much has everything that the record had inside of it. Again, no lyrics. Not that Toto songs are particularly hard to figure out the lyrics, but this was the inner sleeve, looked like that on one side, and the other side just had that band photo. And that was not the only album that they put out in 1984. It's kind of a hidden clandestine Toto album. This is the soundtrack to the David Lynch Dune movie. And it doesn't say Toto on the front or the side. This is on Polydor. This is a Canadian CD. It does say Toto here. I think that's probably that was on purpose. Columbia didn't want another record company trying to promote an album when they were already trying to push one. It's a photo of the band there, so they are mentioned. It's not they're not hidden, but interesting that the CD came out on another label altogether. Some pictures from the movie, including Sting. They made a big deal, I remember at the time, about Sting starring in this, and he's only in it for a few minutes, if I recall correctly. And that's a picture of the band as it was in 1984. It's all instrumental tracks, and actually one song, one track on here is not by Toto, it's actually by Brian Eno. Everything else is by Toto. Prophecy Theme is by Brian Eno, but it's essentially a Toto album, and you know, it's kind of like Queen, Flash Gordon, or whatever. It's, you know, some people don't consider it. Journey, Dream After Dream be another good example, and it's not easy to find, actually. 1986, the next, I guess, proper Toto album, Fahrenheit, and this is another Canadian CD, quite an old one, with the box look to it, and so it's got. So that's what the back cover of the US CD would look like as well. This is the back cover of the booklet. And just got the lyrics and credits inside of it, just like the vinyl does. Another thing about these older CDs is that they tend to be a lot quieter and you have to turn them up louder. I got one more like this. The seventh one. Now they didn't count the Dune soundtrack as one of their albums, so this is their seventh, I guess, proper album. 1988, Columbia, another Canadian version, and weird color scheme. I guess they're kind of continuing with the purple from the front. This is the disc itself. Band photo, and just there's individual band shots and lyrics and credits. The next thing to come out was in 1990. Now you'd think it would be a no-brainer at this point for Columbia to put together a really good Toto greatest hits, and it might have gone on to sell like the Journey greatest hits, or you know, any of those classic bands that had a lot of hit singles. But no, they insisted that the band get the singer named Jean-Michel Byron, who was an R&B singer. He wasn't a rock singer in the least, and he didn't last very long in this band. They recorded 4 new songs, none of which are remotely rock, none of which even sound like Toto. And they put this thing out, call it the thing. It's called Past to Present 1977 to 1990. This should have been a really good best of, but instead, those 4 new songs are practically unlistenable as far as I'm concerned. There's 13 tracks on here, and if you'd taken those 4 new songs off and say put like Stranger in Town, Without Your Love, maybe I'll Supply the Love, or Make Believe, or maybe something from Turn Back, you'd have a really good, solid single disc compilation, but as it stands, kind of a mess. 1992, probably the heaviest Toto album, but I use heavy as a relative term, of course, but it is pretty guitar driven. Kingdom of Desire, great album. A lot of Toto fans swear by this one too. This is a UK copy on Columbia, and this is the last album they did with Jeff Porcaro before he sadly passed away in August of 1992, quite unexpectedly. This is a pretty rocking album, you know, in context of the group. Not a lot of like R&B or anything like that on here. It's just straight ahead, you know, very commercial guitar rock, or the old standard of, you know, what was considered commercial. Certainly not when this album came out, but got all lyrics and credits and photos. And so they toured to support this album. Of course, they needed a drummer. They got, you know, an excellent drummer in his own right, Simon Phillips, journeyman drummer, astoundingly good. You know, these guys always had great musicians. And that tour was captured on this CD, which initially wasn't issued in North America. I think it only came out in the UK and around the world. It's called Absolutely Live. And this is actually a Sony reissue, music on CD. You've also seen ones like this, music on LP. So until that came out, it wasn't easy to find. I don't really like, it's kind of cheap looking graphics on here. I don't understand this guy. There was no such term as yacht rock back then, so I don't know. Maybe they knew something we didn't. It's got one of those flip out CD cases, 2 CDs. You know, good solid album. These guys, you know, pros, and just, you know, good track selection. Don't listen to this that much. There's other live albums by them I kind of prefer, but there's nothing wrong with it. Next thing to come out, 1995, although I don't think it came out in Canada and the States for another year, Tamboo. This is sort of like Alice Cooper's Lace and Whiskey, where there's like a paperback and there's like memorabilia around it. Kind of cool graphics. This is a UK edition on Columbia. Not as... this is more varied than Kingdom of Desire. It's not as guitar driven, unfortunately, but there are some great songs on it. The CD's got some personalization on it. And this is the first one Simon Phillips is on as a contributing member of the band. Very thick booklet. There's a lot in here, and I like the way that the lyrics are written. They're like typed out as if this were a story, and instead of songs, they're called chapters, which is kind of cool. There's some credits in here too. Really hard cardboard, sort of harder cardboard stock in the paper, so this one will hold up for longer. The next thing to come out was in 1998, and not really an album, not really not an album. It's Toto XX, and it's not their 20th album. It marks 20 years as a band. It says 1977 to 1997. This is a really good compilation of songs that were either B-sides or otherwise unreleased, and there are a few live tracks at the end, and perfectly good songs which would have fit in on, you know, the Toto albums. This spans their career from songs that predate the first album to songs from the Fahrenheit sessions. It's good stuff. Some cool graphics here. Always good to see an 8-track. That's the Hydra 8-track. And folds out again. And it shows most, but not all, of the members who had passed through Toto. You know, if this had come out as a new album, I don't know if... Well, yeah, it's easy to see. There's different singers on it, but it's also, you know, recording techniques are different. You can tell these weren't all recorded at the same time, but it's still, it's a good album to listen to because, you know, aside from the live tracks, people didn't know these songs, so it's good stuff. So the next studio album came out in 1999. Again, this is a music on CD reissue. It's called Minefields. And so you can read it okay on here. This is a UK edition. I don't like how they've got this weird... these are the song titles, but it's almost impossible to read what they actually are. I don't like that. It's like, you know, I'm always surprised when these graphic, you know, these visual decisions go this far. It's like people have to be able to read what it says, and I don't know. The artwork's kind of messy. It's kind of looks like early computer graphics to me, very much so, like kind of like Boston's greatest hits. But you know, there are some good songs on here, in my opinion, not great songs. You know, Toto have a high standard of quality, so they don't really phone anything in. But as far as songs with memorable hooks, which is what you want from them, this one's not full of them, but, you know, it's part of the collection, so I had to have it. And it's not bad. Some people out there might think it's a fantastic album. Here's something that Sony in Canada put out a series of these. They're kind of cheap, but when I was just getting into the band, I kind of bought it because it had some of the key songs on it. And I've decided to keep it. It's just collections, you know, Best of Toto. They've put these out for a variety. They're very bland looking. Not a bad track listing for a 10-song best of. I would have swapped out a couple, but, you know, I didn't put it together. Kind of looks like a 45. That's cool. And it just shows other ones in this series. And just a little bit in the songwriting credits. The next thing to come out is one that's getting harder and harder to track down. I had to order it twice to actually get one sent to me. Came out in 2002. And it's Through the Looking Glass. This is their covers album at a time when a lot of classic bands were doing covers albums. Rush, and Aerosmith, Def Leppard, Tesla. And this is actually on CMC, which this has got to be one of the last albums to come out through CMC before they went bankrupt. This is actually from, I'm not 100% sure where this is from, but this might be an indication, this sticker here. It's from Europe, somewhere in Europe. And this actually has copy control technology designed to be compatible with CD, audio players, DVD players, and PC OS, MS, Windows 95, Pentium, blah, blah, blah. So this is just a variety of cover songs, you know, all over the place stylistically. They got a lot of flack for this. They've never been a critic's darling band, but you know, they just kind of laugh it off. And this is just their interpretations of these songs. Good performances on here. This is another one I don't revisit a lot, but you know, completist in me has to have all the stuff, right? And it's definitely, you know, worth seeking out. A little better on the cover art there, I think. Next thing that came out, so another series that Sony did, and I think they kind of got it a little, you know, more or less right, is the Essential series. You've seen these. This is the Essential Toto, and usually they'll come out in a single disc, and then a few years later, maybe they'll put out a 2-disc version. This is a 2-disc version, and it's from the UK, somewhere in Europe anyway. This is pretty good. This, I would hand this to someone and say, if you listen to this and you still don't like any of the songs, you're not a Toto fan. You're not going to be. But this is pretty good. This has got, you know, a lot of, there's some deeper songs on here. There's stuff from Minefields on here, which is cool. Yeah, I like this one. The CDs, 2 different colors, and pretty substantial booklet. I like it when they list the albums. You might notice that there's no Dune listed there because it wasn't on Sony. Pretty good write-up on the band, and really, really good, solid collection. Next thing to come out, another CD that's very rare these days. I had to find a promotional copy. It was their first new studio album in 7 years. It's called Falling in Between, and this came out on Frontiers Records. This is a promo version, and the CD itself is in this, so I very carefully ripped this to my computer because I don't want this to get scratched. I know there was a lot of hype behind this album when it came out. I can't get into it. It's not, like I said, it's not bad. I just don't remember any of these songs. Maybe it's one I need to go back and listen to a little bit more. I think this was the last one they did with Simon Phillips. This is the last one they did for a while. Next thing I've got is didn't come out until 2015, and this was a really, really pleasant surprise. This is Toto 14, at their 14th album. This is also on Frontiers Records. And this is one, I think, of the very best albums to come out in the 2000s by a veteran band. This is an excellent, excellent album. It might be in my top 5 Toto albums. Every song on here is just a killer song. It's paced well. They've got some former members coming back to do guest appearances, like David Hungate. They've even got Michael McDonald on background vocals on one song, or maybe a couple of songs. Just fantastic. Just a fantastic album. It's got a DVD portion that talks about the making of the album, and man, I couldn't believe when I listened to this how good an album this was. You know, for a band that's been around this long, and yeah, love it. Just love it. The next thing to come out was in 2018, and Sony finally got it right and put out a really good single disc compilation. This is called 40 Trips Around the Sun, and even though it's got 3 new songs on it, or 3 previously unreleased songs on it, the rest of what's on here I can't really complain about. It's really, really good. They didn't really leave any vital songs off of here. And so if somebody just wanted a single disc Toto compilation, I would say reach for this one. Because it's fairly more recent, might be a little easier to find too. It's an old photo of the group, and then it, you know, it's got all the lyrics to the songs, and then it ends with the band as they are today. Well, were as of this time. And they went on tour, I guess in support of that. So this came out on Eagle, 40 Tours Around the Sun. This is a 2-disc compilation. This is career spanning. Although there's nothing from the 14 album on it, which is kind of disappointing. But, I mean, they even do the desert theme from Dune, which is kind of cool. Another cool thing they do is a short little acoustic version of the song Human Nature, which, of course, Michael Jackson made famous, but Steve Porcaro of Toto co-wrote the song. So, you know, it makes sense. And it really sounds good in an acoustic setting with Joseph Williams singing it. Always good live. You know, they're embellished by other musicians, and they just sound so good on stage. Really good stuff. An album that I actually did a review on a couple years ago, It came out originally as part of their box set All In, but then thankfully they put the CD out by itself. This is called Old is New. This is a little bit similar to the Toto XX album, which is unreleased songs, but again, this stands as a really, really good album, and there's some good stuff on here. If they didn't advertise it as previously the released stuff, I think most people would think it was just a brand new Toto album. Really good sounding stuff on here. Same band photo in here. This was on Sony, and yeah, I think I gave it a decent review. And so far, you know, until a new album comes out, the most recent thing came out in 2021 on the Players Club. It's called With a Little Help from My Friends. And this is basically Steve Lukather and Joseph Williams and the new version of Toto. And it's audio and video. And again, really, really strong song selection. And the band sounds amazing, especially when you consider a lot of these guys were just hired on. They did this during the pandemic just to get out and play. And I think they live streamed it, and thankfully they also put it out. So it came out, you know, on CD and Blu-ray. This just shows us another couple of releases from this label. Really good stuff. Think there's going to be a new album. Hope so. And I hope they continue sort of where the Toto 14 album left off. So that is a look at my Toto CD collection. What are your favorite Toto albums out there? I'd recommend, if you haven't heard some of these and you like some of their songs, check some of these lesser known albums out. Thanks for watching Tim's Vinyl Confessions.